maximum amount of damage, and so from their point of view this was beyond, I imagine, their wildest dreams from the point of view of success as they would see it. But it's difficult to imagine that they could have foreseen the effect on the Twin Towers. It was so surprising that when we watched it happen, there was speculation, well, they must have got some sort of major explosive device in on the ground floor, which went off at this particular time after the planes had flown in to bring the buildings down. You couldn't possibly bring those buildings down in that way unless you had a major amount of explosives on the ground floor. We know now that that didn't happen, and we know that the heat melted the structure on the top, which then collapsed, and the weight simply took it down like a concertina. I can't imagine they'd imagine that that would be what would happen.
Billions of dollars, of course, spent on US intelligence. Is this being seen as a failure, do you think, an operational catastrophe for the FBI and the CIA?
Well, it's clearly a failure. Whether or not it's a culpable failure, if you have got a small group of dedicated people who obviously have finance, they're obviously not stupid people, this was obviously a well-planned operation, then it's very difficult to see how you can break into that group of people. You know, other nations, and especially the Israelis, have discovered that if you have this tight cell system of Islamic fundamentalists who are prepared to die, it is very, very difficult indeed to find out what they're up to, and it's very, very difficult to put up any sort of very effective defense against them. Obviously there was a failure of intelligence, otherwise it wouldn't have happened. Was it culpable? I guess there's an inquest going on. It's really not a question I would be able to answer. I don't think anybody could answer it at this stage.
Keith Graves, thank you very much indeed. Keith Graves talking to us from Washington.
And these are the latest live pictures coming in from New York. The emergency vehicles clearly visible there. The rescue operation continues. Nobody knows yet not only how many people have died, but also nobody knows how many people might still be alive, trapped in the rubble of what remains of what was once the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center. And these are the pictures taken this morning of the aftermath. You can see cutting gear being used, obviously lifting equipment, particularly difficult conditions in which the rescue workers are operating, because nobody is certain of how much stability there is there. And as you can see, the word, as Anna was saying earlier, apocalypse, used in many of our newspapers today, and you can see exactly why. Total devastation when two of those multi-story skyscrapers simply collapsed in upon each other.
Well, we have heard more information about what happened on board the hijacked aeroplanes. We're hearing that the plane that ploughed into the Pentagon, passengers on board were herded to the back of the plane and were told to telephone their families to tell them they were about to die. This is the hijackers telling them that is what happened. Also getting reports that the planes were taken by just 3 hijackers who were using small craft knives. Again, this is information coming from the passengers on board the plane. 266 of them, of course, died. Now, one of them was a man called Mark Bingham. He was one of 38 passengers on board the plane that crashed near Pittsburgh. His mother and his aunt have been describing the moment they received his call.
And he said, "Hi, Mom, this is Mark Bingham." Giving me his last name. And he said, "I want to let you know that I love you. And I'm flying. I think he said I'm in the air. I'm calling you on the airphone of the airplane."
In his seat?
I presume so. He said, I want you to know I love you very much, and I'm calling you from the plane. We've been taken over. There are 3 men that say they have a bomb." And I said, "Well, who are they, Mark?" And he repeated that he loved me, and he said, I don't think he said, "I don't know who they are." He became distracted there, as if someone was speaking to him, and he said it's something to the effect of, "It's true." And then the phone went dead.
He just said, "I want to let y'all know that I love you very, very much, in case I don't see you again."
I said that.
That the plane has been taken over by hijackers. And then I said, "Well, we love you very much too, Mark. Let me go get your mother."
Well, these are the live shots at the moment, as you can see quite clearly. That's the New York skyline, and a horribly altered skyline without those familiar Twin Towers. And we can also see very clearly from those shots as sun rises over New York, 24 minutes past 6 in the morning their time. You can see the amount of smoke still billowing from the destruction there, and also those live shots showing the street scenes, rescue workers, all of the area, for obvious reasons, totally sealed off. But rescue continues. People who actually were eyewitnesses to the attack said it felt like an earthquake. And over the last few hours, there have been, we believe, mobile phone calls from people alive within the rubble. And obviously what was simply a clearing operation is now a rescue operation under terrible conditions, but they have brought in lifting gear, and as we saw a little earlier, that is continuing. You can see the emergency vehicles on the scene.
Well, it was at 8:56 New York time that American Airlines Flight 11 crashed into one tower of the World Trade Center in New York, and then 20 minutes later, nearly 20 minutes later, as smoke pours from the first impact, a second airliner ploughed into the other tower, swerving to cause maximum impact. This is the result now that America is seeing. Now, the World Trade Center had 239 banks of lifts, one known as the fastest lift in the United States. The building had 20,000 lift doors, but who managed to escape? How many people? We don't yet know. It wasn't, in fact, intended to be easily evacuated after fire. It was sealed, in fact, and the fire was treated, but the impact was so great that the steel structures that held up the building, external steel structures held up the building, collapsed, and the result is this: the Twin Towers are no more. Well, speculation, of course, about who was behind the strike is also centred on the Middle East. Let's go live now to our correspondent in Jerusalem, Andrew Wilson. Let's talk to Andrew Wilson now. Andrew, who is behind this?
Who's behind the attack on the Twin Towers at the moment? That's a very hard question to answer. Of course, the speculation here is as rife as it is in the United States. We've had swift denials from almost all the extremist groups that carry any kind of Palestinian cause behind them.